Fantasy Fives, a podcast where I chat to an esteemed guest all about their dream five-a-side team. My guest this week is the brilliant Paddy Duffy, probably one of the smartest people I know. Well, he says that, but I've never actually really seen it. Paddy is the co-captain of the Irish quiz team, has written questions for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Mastermind. He's got his own Radio 4 quizzing series, and he's with us today. Paddy, how are you?
Great to be here, Ray. An absolute pleasure.
What did I miss? What else? What other cool stuff have you done?
What did you miss? University Challenge. Worked on that. That was a lot of fun.
So how's this all work? See if you're writing questions for a show.
Yeah.
Talk us through that, because I don't think anyone will have heard of that before.
Well, so my job on University Challenge was to do the picture and music questions. So that was always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And especially
They're the only answers
questions.
I ever get, by the way. Like, genuinely.
Well, this was one of the things that I always tried to do. Actually, is that at the start of the year, it's like, because this is often maybe not so much nowadays, but certainly back in the day, popular music was always the Achilles heel of a lot, so they would know their concertos and their, and everything inside out. But it was, you play a bit of Kate Bush and everyone's sort of looking around.
Really?
So I would often work off that assumption, and I'm going, what is it that people would be going at home and going, I can't believe you don't know this track.
Okay, yeah.
But then also, what's the silliest thing that I can put in that I can like intellectually justify?
Yeah.
And I've got two favorites. I think there was one that I played Rock Lobster by the B-52s. And made it in your man is sort of Schneider from the B-52s. He has this like style of sort of singing that isn't almost like singing, and I compared that to the German method of Sprechgesang in the 19th century. And everyone sort of seemed to sort of nod ahead and say, oh yeah, very Wagnerian. And I'm going, yes. The next one actually is a bit German as well. And I was going, is there a way that I can get David Hasselhoff onto University Challenge? And I was thinking, how is the best way to get the Hoff onto the show? And I thought,
a Partick Thistle fan, no less, by the way.
Is he a Partick Thistle fan?
Allegedly, yeah. I've seen a picture of him.
I suppose he did wear a lot of blue, or he did wear a lot of red and yellow in the Baywatch times, didn't he? So I suppose it makes.
So did you get him on?
So we managed to get him on because I was thinking, well, what's the most intellectual in for David Hasselhoff? And it was that he takes a lot of credit for bringing the Berlin Wall down, because he had that song "Looking for Freedom" in 1989. And it was the big song of the summer in 1989 in West Germany. And so we're going, well, if I have that as my in, and I was like, and I think it was 2014 I wrote this, it was the 25th anniversary. So I wrote this very kind of like somber, intro. And then it's like, and then that David Hasselhoff takes credit for bringing the Berlin Wall down. So then the other three bonuses then were other songs that were number one hits in 1989 in West Germany, and managed to get away with that. I got him in.
That's mad. What's, of the shows you've written for, what's the easiest one to write for? Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Easy one. In a sense, actually, yeah. In a sense, maybe Millionaire. But I think it's just a matter of sort of finding the system, really. What's good about Millionaire is that you kind of write what they call a stack from 100 to a million. And then you kind of go and it's like, right, well, so, and it's, so you have you almost kind of have it on an axis, and you're going, well, I need geography question, history question, all that sort of stuff. And so then you just
you've got to get a mix of everything and then go that way.
You kind of get a mix of it. So it'll be shaking around an awful lot, but in an ideal world, basically your day's work is making up basically 2 ladders to a million. And so then it's like, so it's actually quite nice and quite satisfying.
A whole day's work is £200 to 1 million. Yeah. 2 of those questions. Wow.
But that's a good
questions.
That's a good day's work, like, because there's quite a lot of then, because the answers have to make sense as well. And so sometimes basically the difference between a very easy answer and a very hard question, a very easy question, is the options that you give, So you have to put an awful lot of thought into what the
really
ABCD
good point.
thing
Okay,
is.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, this is it, like £100 question will be written in the exact same way, but then it's just that they're a bit more jovial. And I remember actually I did write once a question that I meant for like £100. And then when we went into the room, it was like, that could be a million,
What, people didn't get it?
People don't. Well, no, it was just in terms of because it was a question about like what term in geography refers to, and I think it's like a point at which a river will flow one way or the other way.
Okay.
And it's watershed is the
Wouldn't
that's
have known
where But so then watershed would be the outstanding answer, and then the rest would all be like telly terms,
Yeah,
you know.
okay.
And so I see, right, it must be watershed. And they're going, I reckon that could work as a million, you know. And so that's the only time I've ever.
And did you get a buzz? Like, were you buzzing when they said that, or
well,
what?
there was something a bit exciting about it, actually. There was something a bit exciting because it's like there's that sort of like, ooh, you know. But so yes, I thought that was quite interesting because it's if you can write about anything, then that is actually kind of petrifying.
Yeah.
I find the hardest questions I've worked for are the big volume ones. So like, you know, sort of ones that need hundreds of questions in an episode.
So what would that be?
Oh, so I did a bit for a show called Lightning on BBC Two. It was,
what random daytime presenter presented that one?
Zoe Lyons.
Yes, Zoe did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So but it was that sort of like those kind of bash it out questions I found quite difficult. It's like, well, I could write it about anything.
Yeah.
So I can't think of a thing. But it's like if I know, I need a geography question and it's 16 grand, then that really focuses the mind, you know. So actually, the more constraints you put on yourself, the easier it is to write questions.
And you, in terms of quizzing, am I right in saying you're top 100 in the world?
Oh no, not for a long time. In some manners,
for like popular culture and stuff. Like that,
yeah. In that regard, yeah. So there's this individual. I mean, there are so many formats out there. It is like mind blowing.
Because
like
leagues and you were saying it's like a sport.
It is very much like a sport. It's very much like a sport. And in fact, there's a quiz website that me and my co-captain on the Irish national team play. And it's like you sort of submit, you know, you face off against each other and then you submit and he goes, I won't be able to do it till lunch today. It's kind of, there's a new firewall at work. And they've assigned this quiz website as sports. And I'm going, let's get some funding, man.
Yeah, you've never felt cooler.
Yeah, let's get some kits. This is it. Like,
wearing shin guards to go do a quiz.
How to be, no, see, a full kit quizzer is a real experience. Like, just to sort of say about the, so the pop culture challenge is this is a really interesting format where it's an individual format. And then basically you get your own questions, but then you can steal other people's. And you play against 3 other people. But what's interesting about it is that the amount of guesses that you've already taken puts you further back in the queue. So it's a really sort of nice.
So like the more you get wrong or something like that, the further back you go.
Whether you get them right or wrong, if you've taken a swing at somebody else's, you go back to the queue and then somebody else gets first dibs on it. So it's a really sort of interesting bit of gameplay. But yes, I got to the final of that. Last year to the overall final of that last year. That's world. Yeah. I mean, it's quite UK centric in terms of its scope, but it is like people from all over the world do it. So there's about 300 people do it every year. I got to the final of that one.
How many's in the final?
Oh, just down to the final 4 from 300. It's final 4.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And then the year after that, because it's a bit like the new Champions League format. Actually, that's the way I managed to get my head around the new Champions League format, and everyone else was sort of making head or tail. But, it's like the pop culture challenge, and it's just a bunch of stuff happens for a couple of weeks, and then you're into the final 16.
Yeah,
you know?
Okay.
So that's So I got to the final of that last year, and then they had like the spring version, and then the autumn version, and I just about scraped inside the top 100 for that one. Actually. So it was a bit of a fall from grace. But this year now,
like Rangers going back down the leagues.
Well, this is it. There was a bit of that, but it's a very. Because, you know, it's just a very bouncy format, you know? So it's like when you have great luck, you're in orbit.
Yeah.
And, you know, and when you've got bad luck, you pop out the other side in Australia. You know?
And if we're going to do your Fantasy Fives team in a minute. Final question I'll ask you about quizzing now, because it's such a fascinating world I think a lot of people don't know about. Say you went on as a punter to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We'll use that as an example because we spoke about that. What are you getting? How much money are you making on it? If you get a good run of questions.
Well, if I got a good run of questions, I see it's hard. I will say it's hard to say based on the fact that I've been in it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the stupider things I've done in my life, actually, is that I didn't go on any of the TV shows first.
Yeah.
So I came over to the UK to work on quizzes and things like that. So I mean,
because you could have been the new Chaser, you could have been Dara.
I mean, I might have been. I don't know.
I take it you know him?
It's only through quizzing, actually. Okay. I didn't meet him.
I suppose everyone in Ireland knows each other.
I mean, it's fair. We see he lived in Oxford for a while, so that's why I don't know him. Otherwise, if he'd stayed in Dublin, then I would have done.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I never made any money off the scene at all. Like a lot of people now are quite savvy, and they'll go and it's like they'll make a bit of money off it, and then they'll get quiz writing jobs. So people sometimes ask me, you know, it's like, any advice? And I'm going, first of all, rinse them. Go on as a contestant, rinse it all, then make money
Go
on the
and
thing.
do
'Cause
it.
so I would never get on any of those shows. But that said, if I was going on Millionaire, I'd be aiming for about $250,000.
Yeah.
Would be what I'd be hoping
32,000
for.
I'd be aiming for.
It'd
That's
be
so good.
Well, this said, I mean, that is a sort of a good, and because I suppose it's such a popular show in the culture, isn't it? So now 32 grand is like, that is a good amount of money to earn for the knowledge you have, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I could chat to you for this for hours, man, Paddy. Right. So, football, your dream five-a-side team. You're currently wearing a Sampdoria jersey.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. What's football mean to you?
Football's meant it meant a lot to me as a kid. Certainly,
So who did you grow up supporting?
So I grew up. Now it's interesting because I was listening to Mark Nelson's episode of the podcast, and he took a very localized view, and he was going, "It's like, I don't understand how people can, support a team that."
He actually called out an Irish person for this.
He did, and I went to the same primary school as that person.
As Ryan Cullen, did you?
Ryan Cullen, yeah.
Okay.
So I played football with Ryan Cullen back in the day. His football skills are a totally different subject, by the way. Like, it's more like a true crime podcast. But
good dig.
Yeah. But no, I think Mark Nelson's wrong. Second wrong.
Okay.
I had a team everywhere, basically.
So what Mark was saying was, if you grew up in a local area, you should support that. You shouldn't have an English team. You shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
So, I
had a team absolutely everywhere. So locally, I supported Finn Harps. I went to matches with my father, who was a great footballer in his own right. 1983 Donegal League Footballer of the Year. I believe. Yeah.
What a humble brag that is.
Well,
I love
this is it. Yeah, I'm humble bragging for my own dad. But so I watched. I would have watched Finn Harps. Then I grew up watching Spurs because my father was a Spurs fan as well, and of course Celtic. Because that's part of the starter kit of every Donegal man. It's like it's just literally impossible to get through life not being a Celtic fan. And I tell you what else as well. When Donegal, whenever you would ask somebody who do you support, and they go Celtic, and then you go, well, obviously you support Celtic, and you go, well, who do you support in England? And then they go, no, just Celtic. Now, no, just Celtic is effectively code for my father has Jerry Adams in his phone book. So it's like it was always an interesting bit. It's like being from Donegal. It's like being Sherlock Holmes. Oh, what school did you go to, and what game? What football did you, or what sort of sports did you play, and all that sort of thing. But it's like when somebody said just Celtic, yeah, you just knew, and then you sort of left it. Yeah, but then I took a continental as well. So like some of the first football I saw on television was actually Italian football.
Serie A,
yes.
Football Italia.
Sort of Jimbo Richardson and everything. It's like an icon. From that day onwards. I went to me and a pal from college when we realized that we knew each other for 20 years. It was 20 years since we started college at the same time. We decided to go on a bit of a holiday. We went to Milan.
Great.
Sure enough, Inter and AC were playing that weekend. And so we got tickets for it. And it was, but before we did, and I think that we were most excited about, the match was secondary. But it's like, let's get a copy of Gazzetta dello Sport. Let's get the picture of us and the wee coffee and everything else. I did, absolutely. Sadly, they weren't serving ice cream at the time we went in. I had to wait a couple of hours.
Did you go back? Oh.
We didn't go back. I got the coffee and I got the Gazzetta dello Sport, and
That's like your childhood dream, right? So we're going. The two rules I've got for this is you have to have someone from the team you support. What team are you choosing?
I am anointing
Finn Harps, Celtic, Spurs, or an Italian team.
This is controversial. Well, I've managed to do a little bit of overlap here. I've managed to keep mostly everyone happy.
Well, let's keep your powder dry and then we'll go. So, have you got a team name, Paddy?
I do. It's the team name that I use for all my fantasy drafts and everything. And in fact, I might bring it up at a quiz this year. My team, and you might like this, is Patrick Thistle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that.
It goes back to, back when
just autocorrect, isn't
it? This is exactly. But also, I would have, back in my own football days, which basically ended at around 13, I would have been known as Patrick, And so it's a little bit of a hark back to then. So basically my playing career kind of ended when everyone else's hormones kicked in earlier than mine. It's like, to be fair, I was never much good on open play because in Donegal, basically you played in adult men's pitches, even as a, coming up to here, as a absolute short arse. And so I played two positions. I played left back due to essentially a statistical anomaly, because I was the only natural left-footed player on the entire squad.
It seems to be way more common now, doesn't it? Back in the 90s, hardly anyone was left-footed.
Nobody played with left foot. There was some kind of it was some sort of mystical quality to being a natural left footer. It's like, well, can you also cure my ailments. It was very, very strange. But I also played goals, and I was really into goalkeeping at school level and in five-a-side, like sort of indoor football kind of thing. But basically, whenever you were playing these big man nets, and I was just this wee blip in the middle, and
Did you have the glasses on at the time?
No, I didn't have the glasses on. This was only Edgar Davids was allowed to wear glasses in 90s football at that point.
That's so true.
But it was, that was an absolute disaster because, I remember there was some boy, whose, pituitary gland was overactive at that point. And basically, he was a superstar because he was 6 foot already at 13 and had a big toe. And he was basically able to launch it in from basically anywhere. So he was a superstar for that. And that sort of put paid to my football career in that regard. So having Patrick Thistle evokes those sort of times, so back in the turf.
Okay, let's go goalkeeper. Who are you starting off with?
Goalkeeper was really tough because goalkeepers were the ones that I gravitated towards quite naturally.
Empathize with,
I really did. They were always the people that I launched in on because I suppose when you're growing up and maybe you feel a bit different or maybe you feel a bit of a fish out of water, and then it's and goalkeepers were kind of sort of a bit like that on a football field as well, So it's my big favorites were always the ones that wore something insane, like a Jorge Campos.
Yes.
People that sort of threw themselves around was sort of what my pal that I went to Milan calls camera banditry.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Always loved those lads. The people that I loved the most were tracksuit bottoms. If you saw a goalkeeper with tracksuit bottoms, you knew you were about to see some Olympic level gymnastics go down. I was always sort of love that.
I've got a name in my head that you're going to pick if you're going for this. Who have you chosen as your goalie then?
Well, the jersey is actually a bit of a clue here.
So I was going to go for Gabor Kiraly. I thought that was the Hungarian goalie you might go who wore joggies.
He was fascinating. He was definitely on my long list of what an interesting and weird guy you are.
Knowing you as I do, I know you did have a long list and then you had a short list and then this is hours worth of work.
This was systematic. It's Desert Island Nah, I was Fantasy 5 is genuinely stressful.
Yeah.
But so I opted for Walter Zenga.
Oh, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. That's a connoisseur choice, I would say.
Thank you very much.
What drew you apart from the tracky bottoms? What else?
Well, so his cat-like reflexes fascinated me for a start. And also if you watch back at clips, and I implore everyone listening to do so because it is fascinating. Do you know what else he does that people don't do nowadays or goalkeepers don't do nowadays? Is that when a big shot comes in and you have to sort of launch for it, he catches it mid-air. You don't see that now. It's sort of goalkeepers nowadays are more like volleyball players, And so he manages to sort of get all the agility in, but he's not parrying a lot of the time. It's if he can catch it, he catches it. And I find that fascinating. But the thing that I think will be most useful for this team, as well as I found it absolutely fascinating, is his use of leg saves. He would save it with his legs more often than he would save it.
Which is what most fives keepers do, don't they?
Exactly. And so I thought that would be dead useful. And so he played for Sampdoria. He'd been at Inter Milan for a long, long time. And then him and Pagliuca basically swapped. And so then he became Sampdoria's guy. And I think in a weird way, he suited Sampdoria's kind of
underdog
weird hipster
style.
energy a
weird
lot more.
Energy.
Whereas
for a team called Patrick Thistle. Doesn't it? Yeah.
Whereas Pagliuca, I love Pagliuca. And in fact, actually, one of my prouder moments is that a fella in school my nickname was Paddy Pagliuca for a while, which I absolutely adored. But to be honest, I couldn't.
Sounds like you're in the UFC. Big Paddy Pagliuca coming in, man. That's great.
But his energy isn't quite what I'm after for goalkeeper, I big fan of his. Also, fantastic to see him lobbed at the 94 World Cup when Glasgow's own Ray Houghton.
Is Ray Houghton Glaswegian?
He's Ouija, yeah.
Is he? I didn't know that.
But his father's from Donegal, and that's the dominant gene.
Who was in his dad's phone book? Did he have a certain man there? Sounds like he might have. I think that's what's happening there. That is a strong start. Walter Zenga in goals. A defensive-minded person. Who's your next pick, Paddy?
Defensive-minded person is Dennis Irwin.
Going Irish again.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, I needed to have somebody from those halcyon days
he from
of Ireland. No, he's from Cork. He's from the opposite sort of end of. He's from the opposite end of the country from me.
And when you said Cork, in my head, I did the Cork voice. I'm
not
going to do it. I'm not going to do it out loud because I hate crime. But some brilliant Chris Kent's from Cork, Andrew Ryan, some really good Cork comedians. And when you hear their voice, you're like, That's not real.
That's not actually your real name. That's something that you put on for the,
but it's
for
not.
the locals. Oh no, there's it is a fascinating accent. Like it is a fascinating. And what's interesting as well that when you hear Dennis and Roy Keane chatting together, you do kind of have to listen out of, well, which one is it? You know.
So where's Roy Keane from?
Roy Keane's also from Cork.
Right,
Although he's from sort of out the county way. He's from Cove, whereas Dennis was a city boy. But
why Dennis Irwin?
So I sort of feel like this is more like a statement for life as much as for the team, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I sort of feel like every group of people, whether they're a football team or not, needs a Dennis Irwin for them to be a successful and cogent group. You know? If your stag do doesn't have a Dennis Irwin, then your biggest liability is not coming home.
Yes, that is so.
It's like,
that is so true.
You know, it's like if there's not a Dennis Irwin type person on that getaway, then Big Mad Davies staying on in Prague. You know,
so is he taking the money? Is he collecting the money? Is that
he's collecting the money? He's making sure pints of water are had, but sort of before everyone sort of gets to bed, making sure everyone is in. You know, making sure everyone sort of gets a good breakfast the following day after. It's just just slowly, just silently, kind of just like keeping the whole sort of group together, making sure everyone, people don't wander off, making sure everyone's sort of well looked after. You know,
it's so funny that you've put a Premier League winner who's probably won the Premier League. If I was to guess, I would say 7 times. And you've reduced him to hydration joy. Like, he is Adam Sandler. He's the water boy.
But like when you think of that Man United team, like, and you think of the 90s, and you think of all the big names and big egos around that time, like the Giggses and Cantonas and Beckhams, and even sort of, I suppose, Ronaldo sort of coming in around that time, and like, and all the people that got the heat and Roy, of course, as well, all the heat and all the press and all the laurels. Then meanwhile, there's Dennis Irwin just ticking along, doing his job, scoring the occasional screamer as well, and even in a team with all that talent, dead ball specialist, and he's just going about his business, not making any fuss.
Yeah,
and I think that's I have real respect for people that can do that kind of thing.
I feel with Dennis Irwin, even though I wonder how much money he was on, I always got the feeling you'd see him in Matalan.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Kind of
he'd bring
man.
his own bag to the Tesco. It's like, there's something quite like there's just something very grounded kind of about him.
Yeah, he had a bag for life before everyone else did.
Exactly. He'd bring out. He'd always have. He'll always have a change purse. It's like, oh, I didn't know this was cash only. It's like Dennis Irwin has you sorted.
Okay.
It's
I like that. That's a nice balance. So who's your next player in this team, Paddy?
Well, you see, I needed to have a responsible adult at the back because it gets a bit sexy from all.
Yes, okay, get the sexiness
out. So
I've got bit sexy.
I've got quite literally, you might argue. So I've got one at the back, and then it's 2 midfielders.
Yeah, go.
My first midfielder, big sexy himself, John Collins.
Oh, he's getting the 6-packs out.
Yeah.
What made you choose John Collins, Paddy?
So I needed to have somebody that represented Glasgow, that represented Scotland and represented Celtic. I needed somebody.
Got you, okay.
I needed somebody that had that.
What other good-looking players have played for Celtic and Scotland? You could have had a Charlie Mulgrew. You could have had, it's Rab Douglas. It could have been one if we're talking about big sexy.
Matinee idols all. But I sort of feel I suppose what maybe draws this team together is that there's a certain kind of 90s glamour to it. Like, these are the people that I was watching whenever I was kind of articulating a certain identity about football, And so what I loved about John Collins was, as well as playing for Celtic and as well as being a rather glamorous player, but he also had like such charisma, but also he played abroad.
Went to
he was
Monaco?
in that sort of lovely kind of era where Scottish players were playing abroad.
Yeah.
I suppose, which is kind of coming back now with Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Like basically a lot of Serie A's greater
Scottish,
players are Scottish, yeah. So yeah, it was all that sort of combo, and it's like, and just the first person to ever score with a Predator boot,
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, Paddy, that is a stat and a half.
Yeah.
This is what,
so that worldie of a free kick against Rangers. That was the first way.
First ever goal with a Predator boot.
And people apparently sort of walked in as well. I think he's talked about this, like, and he looked at it and he may as well have been wearing Uggs. The way that sort of people were looking at him, and then it's like, and when you look at that free kick back, it's like maths, It's like you see this sort of curvature sort of come in, and it's like I would write that formula. I want to write that formula. It was absolutely beautiful. And then of course, maybe my favorite thing that he's done was wink at the camera before the 98 match.
Yeah.
I remember just about being home in time from school.
So in Scotland, we got let out of school an hour early.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was a 3 o'clock or 3:30 kickoff. Scotland, Brazil. And yeah, we get let out of school early to go home and watch it.
Yeah. We probably got out like more like 5 minutes early. It's like, oh, people want to watch the match at home kind of thing. But yeah,
the camera pans down. So we're playing Brazil.
Yeah.
The world champions. And lovely little wink to the camera.
Wink to camera. And then like, because that's one like that's the sort of thing that, well, it's not the sort of thing that Scotland gets an awful lot. You know, it's like not
showbiz.
Well, that's it, a showbiz. Yeah, exactly. That razzmatazz. Yeah. But it's like that's the sort of thing where, you know, generally in Scotland sport, you see somebody wink down the camera and, you know, and their cruciate pops like 3 minutes in, you know, or they sort of, you know, gives the ball away and Ronaldo's in for, you know, 1-0.
The Kieran Tierney celebrating a goal kick in the Euros at 3 minutes in. For me, I think if I was watching a game and a player winked at the camera, I would then believe any allegations that came out about them. Like, do you know that way? I'd be like, he's probably done something. Like, but it's a different time now. In the 90s, you could wink at a camera and get away with it. Now.
But it's the fact that he actually ended up scoring against Brazil, having done that. I mean, that is a level of class, you know, that you can only really aspire to.
You know this Hib story where he was showing the players the six-pack and stuff like that? That became his legacy, and you forget he was such a continental player at the time.
This is it, and he was, and it was brilliant because I suppose this was an era. I suppose whenever I started watching football, anyway, it was that sort of, you had a bit of Italian 90 as your insight to glamour, but then this idea then when not just like the likes of, you know, like big stars from Serie A or the Bundesliga or whatever coming to England or to Scotland, but Scottish players going to the continent and being able to say, no, we can do this.
Yeah, because you think about that team, we had Lambert, who was at Dortmund, and I think he'd probably just come back to Celtic by then. Yeah, great. So John Collins is a good shout. Dennis Irwin and John Collins, I feel, would not get on.
It's they've got different roles, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's like Dennis is going to have to do a bit of cajoling there.
He's cleaning the change room after the game and all that. Yeah.
It's actually, that's a good point, isn't it? It's like it's one of those things where like in the group of lads they get on fine, but like if like two of them go to the bar and one of them goes to the bogs and they're left by themselves, just pitch black silence. You know, it's just like. Right.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I like your new boots. Yeah. Just that good, yeah. You said you got two midfielders. Who's playing alongside John Collins in this team, Paddy?
Playing alongside a midfield is my choice, actually, as fan favorite.
Okay.
David Ginola.
Oh, so when you said sexy,
I meant it. I was not playing around, right?
Yeah. So why Ginola? Was that through the Tottenham connection?
Through the Tottenham connection. I mean, he was one of those guys. Newcastle were one of those teams that you always had a bit of like respect for, and you always kind of wanted them to win, like neutral's favorite.
Is that kind of one team city?
Yeah, exactly.
One city team. Yeah.
One city, yeah. And I really enjoyed. And so whenever he came, so I would have seen him in, you know, watching Paris Saint-Germain initially, and been a big fan, and then when he came over to Newcastle, going, God, what a great player and what a great match he is. The only better match really is Ginola playing for Spurs. And then lo and behold,
I think it was just you thinking that, Paddy, no one else.
That was my manifesting dream journal as an early teen.
Got a dream catcher outside the house in Donegal, just praying for.
And this is it. It's like, we got him, you know. But yeah, so I sort of feel like Ginola he's just the ultimate Spurs player, you know, because like as a Spurs fan, it's one of those things. I don't know if like, do you gravitate towards your team because you see parts of yourself in them, or do you follow a team and then you end up imbibing sort of those traits yourself? I'm not entirely sure what way it goes round, but certainly just as a life philosophy, the Spurs philosophy is one that I really get down with. You know, it's like, it's winning 1-0 in a dry fashion is not for me. I would much rather, you know, lose elegantly. I would much rather kind of that sort of flair and being that kind of, you know.
So being a Celtic and a Spurs fan, Postecoglou.
Love him. I've total devotion to the man. I mean, devotion. Well, I remember because like when Spurs fans, sort of fellow Spurs fans of mine were saying it's like Angelo, I don't know, and I go on. That's what they said at Celtic too. Yeah, it's like he's gonna be good. And you know what? I think he will if he gets a bit of time and he gets a bit of time and just a few alterations, because it's like, you know,
Paddy, we're going to put this out in about 6 weeks' time, and I'd be surprised if he's still on the job by then. I really do think that.
I was fearful of that. It's kind of after the draw against Bournemouth, I was going, I mean, I know they're doing well at the moment, but that is the sort of match that we should be
at
winning.
Home and all that.
And but the thing about it is that he is so fundamentally Spurs. Like after the experience of Conte and Mourinho, they're not Spurs men, and to go through all that, and we had rubbish results with them as well.
Yeah.
So
bring back Tim Sherwood.
What's Tim? Ryan Mason back
Mason just gets shoved out every
he
time.
Just sort of in to carry his water
guy
again.
Still got a headache. Like, what's
poor
happening?
Man. But the thing about it is, though, is that like if Spurs are going to be this team, if they're going to be this infuriating, if only, and the bizarre amount of injuries, if we're going to be those guys, then we may as well be Spurs to the max. And that's what I love about Ange at the moment is that he brings Spurs to the max.
Yeah.
It's never boring. And that's like, if you're a Spurs fan and you're a bit concerned about, we're a bit too swashbuckling, then why are you a Spurs fan?
Yeah.
We're not here for that.
What's the quizzing equivalent? Because Ange is very kind of, everything goes, it's a bit crazy. What TV quiz show is the equivalent of Ange Postecoglou?
Oh.
What's the most free?
That is interesting. That's a really good question, actually, is that if Ange was a quiz show.
Yeah.
I know a few teams we play against that bring that kind of chaotic energy.
Yeah.
But, I can't believe is it even a quiz? Golden balls.
Oh,
there's a certain degree of kind of it's that sort of jaw dropped,
at the end,
sort of head in your hands kind of thing. That's
you can still be fucked over after 90.
You can still be fucked exactly. Yeah. It's like we're all through now. We're going to get a draw, aren't we? We're going to get it. Oh Jesus Christ, we've lost again. That is Ange.
And I've concerns about this, Paddy, because I don't think Ginola and John Collins will mesh together. So who's your striker? Who is the person that's going to save this mum and dad divorce?
Well, you know something? This is actually a player that all of us in the Duffy family loved as a kid.
Oh, you're evoking the family now.
This is evoking the big and he's despite Ginola being the fan favorite because he's just the platonic ideal of a Spurs player.
Yeah.
With that sort of with the sweet left foot and everything else and the hair, like the advertising. But the person that actually made me a Spurs fan, as well as Dad, was Jurgen Klinsmann.
Oh, I like that.
So there's what I'm hoping is that there's a nice bit of overlap, not just in terms of play, but then and also it's like, so Jurgen Klinsmann and John Collins would have played at Monaco. They both played at Monaco. Klinsmann and Zenga both played at Sampdoria. Ginola. So there's combination.
You've thought about this so much, Paddy.
It's just it's like whenever you're bringing them all together and going to Jurgen, you will have known Walter.
Yes.
So you would have, you probably went to the same pubs in Genoa at that time. It's like I said, John, I definitely know you were at the same pubs in Monaco.
Yeah.
So I think he's just a very to your point.
What did you like about him so much?
What I loved, there was just something incredibly dynamic about him because like the first football that I would have watched was international football, and I always just. His energy, I found, was just terrific. He was so watchable. He was just a real natural leader. And I did actually quite enjoy the fact that he was a bit of a shithouse as well.
Love that in a player.
Love it's like this whole thing. And the fact that he went and like when he scored his first goal for Spurs against Sheffield Wednesday, the fact that he did a dive as his celebration, that was immediately, well, there's somebody that is just very self-aware.
First time he'd ever done it?
That was his first, yeah.
Because I remember playing football. So I was born 88, so I started playing football like 96, 97, in games, and it was the Klinsmann dive. Yeah. Everyone would do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was the first time he'd done it. Just because were they slagging him, calling him a dive or something?
Because his rep was that of somebody, that would go down at the drop of a hat, basically.
Right, okay.
And so that's why he decided to do that. And he won so many people over. But he was such a great coach. And I think for a five-a-side as well, you need somebody that is going to cause a bit of havoc. And so despite being a very elegant player and very dynamic player, he could also cause a lot of havoc.
Yeah.
And he, had that sort of goalkeeper's goal poacher's instinct, for goal.
Yeah.
And I just adored him. So the idea that he came to Spurs then, having seen him as like, he's amazing for Germany. And then for him to come to our club was amazing. That whole era felt like a real breakthrough. It was like that rather than it just being the only time that you ever saw players from different countries or from, different parts of the world at all, was either at European level or at the internationals. For them then to sort of join leagues, it felt incredibly exciting.
And this is what the rise of the Premier League kind of as it went there. Yeah. I think there's a lovely balance, like positionally, of this team. So we'll recap it. You got Walter Zenga in goals. You've got Dennis Irwin, John Collins, David Ginola, and Jurgen Klinsmann.
Jurgen Klinsmann.
That is a nice
Yeah.
5. The manager of this team has to be someone from your phone book.
Yes.
Who are you going as the manager of your team, Paddy Duffy?
So I was sweating this, as you could probably imagine, sort of my shortlist. And at one point I was thinking, God, you know what? Da would actually quite enjoy being a lot, because he was a big fan of a lot of these players too. But I thought, because this is like quite a continental team, and because it's such a fascinating kind of mesh of players, it needed somebody that was a real Renaissance man to sort of hold it together and to make sure that, like you say, that maybe Dennis Irwin and John Collins have something to say to each other, and to make sure that Ginola and John Collins, aren't aren't sort of vying for the same crown,
the same lady. That's what it is.
I was going to say that, and then I thought, I won't, but I'm glad you. That is exactly what.
So who have you selected?
So I've chosen the biggest Renaissance man that I know, and indeed that you know. I've chosen Stuart Cosgrove.
Do you know? As you started talking about this, I did wonder if it was going to be Cosgrove. I think he would actually do quite well. I think he would have no time for Collins' 6-pack. I think that he'd be like, put it away, like hitting him and stuff like that, fine him every time he gets it out. Cosgrove, I think, would be good.
I think he'd be really good in terms of just managing the different wants and needs.
Channel 4.
Well, exactly. I mean, if he can manage that, then he can manage it. But you know what I loved about? I was reading up about Ginola before I came on, and there was a player in the French team around that time that said he was a terrific player, but his discipline was seriously off.
Can you imagine?
And I couldn't really respect that. But that player was Eric Cantona.
Was it?
Eric Cantona said that about Ginola. And I was like, mate, that says a lot. But you know what? I reckon Stuart is the man to handle.
How wild was Ginola? That's a lovely team. That's a lovely team. I'll enjoy it. I think a night out with them would be quite fun to a certain point. And then I'd be like, no, Dennis, can you run me home?
Dennis Dennis has been on the 0.0 lagers. He's got the car outside.
He's raging about it. Yeah, okay.
And he said, well, actually, I reckon he'd be the sort of fella, that may be the one thing that he would bring up, I think, with John Collins. He kind of going, you ever try that Guinness Zero? He'd go, nah, I mean, it's really good, I reckon that's his end,
Shite stag do chat, yeah. So what's next for you, Paddy? Your Radio 4 show will be coming up soon. So what is it?
Yeah, Radio 4 show, Round Britain Quiz, comes out in May. This show has been running since 1947.
That's insane.
Which it is. It's mad. It's an absolute sort of honor to be part of something with that, because there's nothing really that has that degree of.
How did you get involved with it then?
Well, so I had been. In my sort of daily job as a television producer, I got a call from somebody I used to work with saying, the director's making this show for BBC 4 about quizzing. And I know that you're kind of in that world, so, would you give them like a background interview? And very happy to do it. And so we ended up chatting for like 90 minutes. And I said, I'll tell you what show, just based on everything that they were chatting about, I bet I know what you need to chat about in this program. And that's Round Britain Quiz. Because that's like the Allen key for everything, like if you want to chat about Only Connect and the rise of all this, is that like Round Britain Quiz has been going for decades and decades and decades. And just in terms of sort of the evolution of it was one of the first to use essentially ISDN lines. It came from a show called Transatlantic Quiz. And David Niven and Peter Ustinov used to do that, which was just incredible to be part of that. And I'm going, if you're going to do a show about the underbelly of quiz or or the Dennis Irwin characters essentially of quiz and media, you have to chat about Round Britain Quiz. So then they ended up interviewing me for the show, which was never really part of the plan, but I interviewed and I talked glowingly about Round Britain Quiz for it, and then got in touch, and they interviewed a bunch of people from Round Britain Quiz for the series then as well.
You did a coup, didn't you?
And so, we ended up in contact with the producer then after that, and then I put on for a show, another Radio 4 quiz that was just more like a punters kind of thing, and I put on for that, and in the green room afterwards, I got the old Cambridge spy tap on the shoulder.
Really?
And it was like, we are looking to update the Northern Ireland team, and so I've been doing that now since 2017, and it's just the most fun thing to do, because you get to the most interesting people like Stuart McConey, Val McDermott, Paul Sinha. There's amazing people. With Carrie Lloyd has just joined us recently. It's just the most lovely, interesting people, but it's such a brilliant broadcasting challenge as well, because you get the clues essentially. It's not really quiz questions as such. It's more like paragraphs of clues that you need to work out. but you get them as the mics are, being pushed up.
That's good.
And
so it's actual quiz.
brilliant.
element,
The host is sort of chatting and saying, like our brain teaser from last time was this, and then it's like right into it. So if you're going first, you maybe get like 60 seconds to think about what's coming next. So it's a brilliant broadcasting challenge as well as a really interesting.
So what's it out on Radio 4?
Be on Radio 4, the Sounds app, and sort of in anywhere that you
all
get
good
your
BBC
podcast.
Sounds, wherever you get your podcast. These are the things I've read out on Radio Scotland a lot of times over the years.
Yes.
So
yes,
do that.
indeed.
That's great. And then quizzing wise, if someone wanted to start being a quizzer, where do they go? The local pub quiz, and then go from there. Or what happens?
Yeah. So if you've done the I would say do a few of those first. If you have kind of designs on it, do a bit of that and make sure you get into that. There are so many ways now to get into it. There are online leagues, so you can sort of join up if you look at sort of the online quiz league, for example, and somebody will be there to sort of help you through the process.
It's going to be you in it.
No, I did that for the Quiz League of London, which was like an in-person thing. I did used to be the
too big for that.
guy. Oh no, it's
too big hobnobbing with David Ginola to be able to do it.
Well, listen, I've got a team to manage. And
and
but
finance.
That is a hefty bar tab, isn't it? Like, when you think of it.
That definitely
And
is.
and hair products. It's like that's the other thing about this.
Irwin's Brill Cream. He is Brill Cream. There's nothing
he is Brill
else
Cream all
happening there.
around. It's kind of Make sure there's no naked flames in that dressing room actually, because it could be an absolute disaster.
That's the perfect way to end it. The only team with a no naked flame disclosure. If you've enjoyed the episode, turn on push notifications and rate the podcast in whatever podcast app you get. 5 stars helps us move up the way and we can get more great guests on. Check out Quiz Round Britain. It'll be out on BBC Sounds. And Paddy Duffy, thank you for joining us on Fantasy Fives.
Pleasure, Ray.